Welcome back. We've got Taking Stock now, which is our panel discussion on some of the day's big money and business stories. We start with the NAB, of course, which is one of the biggest stories of the day. And we've got John Rolfe with us and also Jack Delosa. So, John, first to you. When it comes to leadership, it's one of the most important things in business. What do you make of what we saw today?
A blessing for NAB shareholders. The sooner that they and Dr. Ken Henry were parted, the better it was for those particular group of shareholders. He's someone who I don't think should ever have been leading a large publicly listed company, and it's taken the Royal Commission to bring about his return to Taree. So I think he should go looking after hairy-nosed wombats, and we should never hear from him again.
Oh, the hairy-nosed wombats.
Tell us what you really think, John.
Yeah, so you're not feeling there's, no sympathy whatsoever?
No, he was too smart for all of us. Well, he got shown a thing or two. Kenneth Hayne, he, a very respected High Court judge, couldn't stand a bar of him, and told us also in an otherwise very sober 1,000-page report. He left the media. It was like it was gleaming there in this document. This one particular paragraph, and where he really got stuck into someone, and it's claimed both of their scalps.
So just can't behave like that, you're out. That's basically where the opinion was formed on him. That's the moment you decide that you can't be the chair of NAB anymore if you're going to behave like that.
I think that what Kenneth Hayne was looking for was some commitment to a changing culture. He's not looking to introduce tougher laws. He's looking for the laws to be enforced, and for those who are subject to the laws to be willing to be to act in a way that is in their I guess, adhering to those laws. And he wasn't seeing that from those two. He saw it from the CBA in Matt Common, which arguably had committed much worse offences over a wider array of products. But he saw contrition, and he didn't see it from Ken Henry and Andrew Thorburn.
Love strong opinions. Jack, you do a whole lot of mentoring of future and up-and-coming business leaders. I think one thing that we take away from all of that is how important style is when it comes to CEO. Because, I mean, ultimately, I guess all the banks did bad things, but there's three of the big four banks still got their CEOs, and one, as you said, it was singled out in the report, one because of basically the attitude, the kind of the body language, they're gone.
Yeah.
I think that's massive takeout.
Style is a really interesting and I think accurate word, particularly when used to describe the changing sort of ethos in the business landscape. Certainly not at the corporate level, but I can talk from an SME level, small to medium-sized business owners in Australia. You know, I'd suggest that the vast majority of business owners today are very different to how they were cut in the 80s, right? Gone are the days at an SME level of more is better, greed is good, Wall Street, Gordon Gekko type operator. Now business has become a bit softer. It's got a bit more integrity. It's a lot more authenticity. I don't know if that trend will ever reach nor change corporate Australia. You know, it's a different world. It's a different ball game. They play by very different rules. But it is refreshing to see it at an SME level.
I do kind of get a bit sick of this idea that the more media trained, I'm talking media trained to the nth degree, the better the CEOs seem to perform, and therefore that's why they remain successful and in their places, as opposed to, because basically one of the criticisms of the NAB guys is like, well, what was the PR team doing? You know, how could they have been allowed to be trained to be able to answer questions like that? They didn't do enough training. And I think you just end up getting these cookie-cutter type CEOs who just giving the answers that they're told to give. And I find I feel a bit despondent in that as well. I mean, not maybe in this case, but I just feel like we kind of are always, requiring that our CEOs all sound and look the same, you know?
We had Mark Burris in here a little while ago. He's not that type of CEO.
No.
Jerry Harvey isn't that type of CEO. John Singleton's not that type of CEO. I think that there are plenty of people out there who have been very successful and are well regarded and yet still share their heartfelt opinion, and they're not media trained to the nth degree. It would have been nice if Andrew Thorburn hadn't gone fishing for a month. As simple as that.
He was media training?
No, I prefer he was there dealing with the crisis within his bank on behalf of his shareholders and his other stakeholders. It's
a big point. It was a big point in the whole lead up to his departure from the bank was, where have you been during all this, right? But he did raise a good point, which he kind of went back and forth on a little bit, which is, I'm a human being, I need to have a break, this has been an incredibly stressful year for me. Jack, what do you think about that from an executive perspective, the right to take a break, but also the need to be there when your business is having a really hard time?
Yeah, I come at that from two very different angles. The right to take a break, you know, I think we should be encouraging more balance and more downtime, more self-care across entrepreneurs and executives everywhere. We just need more of it, you know. However, during a time of crisis, don't be an absent leader, right? With everything that was going on, I get the human element, you know, we've all been through, you know, some of us years of traumatic periods in business, and you don't get to take a holiday during those periods, you know, and so, yeah, I think when it's crisis mode, you're there.
Good point. All right, consumer anxiety's hit a 3-year high. Australians are increasingly fretting about debt, falling house prices, sluggish wages growth. Any of you guys find that surprising? We've got a current political and news cycle that maybe kind of loves to jump on those stories as well, feed these kind of anxieties too. What do you think?
I think the consumer is surprisingly resilient, to be honest with you, given the torrent of bad news that they're subjected to each day. I think that Australians pretty much just get on with getting on. And I think you know, if there's anything encouraging in this, it's that we're cutting back on some consumer or discretionary spending, and you know, we're not seeing people lose their jobs. We're seeing defaults at all-time lows. That's what Commonwealth Bank reported yesterday on homes. So I think the things that really matter, people are still coping with, but they are finding that there's more pressure. Touched upon before that ANU research showing that living standards, being the difference between the costs that we all pay and what's going on with our salaries and increases, has not been wider in 30 years. So people are doing it tougher because their living standards are in decline. But I think overall people are pretty resilient. It would only take, I think, a further drop in house prices though for confidence to fall a lot further, because so much of people's wealth and their perception of their own wealth is tied up in the value of their property. They might not actually have that money in their pocket, but they've got a sense that they're getting ahead because they're seeing prices in their local area increase at auctions and in for sales.
Of course. Consumer anxiety, Jack, I suppose that naturally leads into small and medium business anxiety. What are you seeing out there with the people you're talking to?
You know, I think from a consumer perspective, you know, as John rightly points out, things are getting worse, and there is reason for lack of confidence in future economic growth for the short to medium term, perhaps. I tend to come at it, as I believe many SMEs and entrepreneurs do, which is, what can I best do? You know, there are things that I can't control, namely taxes, economy, interest rates, death, right? There's stuff that I can't control. It's like, you know, if you ever go to a footy game, I'm an AFL guy, you know, I'm a Melbourne boy, and you sit in the coach's box, they will only ever talk about the things that they can control. So if the umpire makes a decision that's the worst decision ever and it really penalises them, no one says a word, because there's just no point. You can't control the umpires. And so as entrepreneurs, we literally don't talk about it. And I speak to about 30,000 entrepreneurs a year. We don't talk about the economy, we don't talk about regulation, we don't talk about taxes, because we're too busy focusing on what we can control.
Very good. That's a good message. Absolutely. Look at what you can control. Love that. Speaking of things that you control, I'm actually really sad to be segueing into this, because this is tough for the person involved. We're talking about a costly error. A delivery driver fell asleep at the wheel and crashed into 4 Ferraris. So, how bad do you feel for this person? Or is this a good lesson for others about driving while fatigued? Because, of course, it could have been a lot worse, right?
Well, the lesson I take from this is the value of third-party property insurance.
Yes. Which, compared to the $2 million cost of the accident, would have been, what, couple
Look, this guy and his family, for those who don't know the detail of the story, they were doing it tough. He was filling in because his mum was sick. He was doing some deliveries. And he was not insured, even on his own vehicle. So, yeah, that's tough, very tough. But people have come to the party and helped him out through a form of crowdfunding that might have been state organised, I think, in Taiwan. But, yeah, third-party property insurance, which is the property that sits between compulsory CTP and comprehensive, it costs, I just did a check, it costs about a third of what a comprehensive insurance costs. So if you're driving a bomb yourself and you don't want to be in a situation where you have to pay for 4 Ferraris, get third-party property insurance, and then you don't have that worry. My wife often says this to me, sorry honey, but she'll say, oh, we don't want to back into the BMW. It makes no difference. Once you have insurance,
we're covered.
Whether it's a $2,000 car or $200,000 car. But it will always get more nervous about the expensive car. It mattered for this guy.
Take that worry off your plate. Take that consumer anxiety away from the equation.
I love how rational that point of view is. That's just beautiful.
Drives them nuts.
Whether it's a Mercedes or a Hyundai, even ballpark.
It did get us thinking, though. I mean, none of us are going to have anything on this scale, right? But we've all made clanging mistakes when it comes to money. All at once, down the drain, big money. What are we talking? I mean, Brooke's got an excellent one, which I can't wait to get to.
I want to hear yours first.
Well, okay.
Well, it's just those ones that you remember because it was so stupid, right? It wasn't $2 million in Ferraris, but we, 2 years ago, we decided to buy a giant inflatable Santa to really impress the neighbourhood. Like, we're going to go all out this year. And it was one of those warehouse-size ones that towers over the house, and we were, like, standing, we were as big as the feet. We were so proud. I mean, $400, like, silly money. $400, we thought, this is going to be great. At the time, I had friends buying Bitcoin, right? It was soaring. It was absolutely soaring. And we were joking, oh, well, you buy your Bitcoin, you get rich, I'm just going to spend $400 on an inflatable Santa. 2 days, high winds, ripped apart, gone. And we always just say...
Bitcoin.
Yeah. So then this exchange happened, like, OK, well, my bubble burst first, and then there came the Bitcoin story. So, you know, I had the last laugh, I reckon, in the end, because they were a lot more invested in Bitcoin than I was in that.
Exactly.
But it was just one of those ones, like, that was a silly waste of money. Quite obvious at the time. Probably shouldn't have done it, but...
Yeah, so we're
just
here
laughing. I got the photos.
I say, I love it. I've seen the photos. Can confirm that you come up to about the shins on this thing. Unbelievable. So we're going to dob you guys in now. We want to know, what are we talking here? Terrible money decisions, John?
I will confess to having bought investments that I didn't understand, and then I lost money on them. So, and even worse, I did it twice. So, you know, I lost, quite, at the time, what was a considerable sum for me when they, through some of those Great Southern Plantation investments. And the mistake was that I allowed myself to be convinced that it was a good idea to try and lower my tax bill. Yep. When really I should have been listening to your advice, which is the tax was something outside of my control. But I paid a lot of money to people to help me lose money, so it's something that I will never do again.
And it hurts to think about it, right?
That hurts.
Mine is similar. I'm trying to think of a funny one. I don't have a funny one. Mine's actually quite morbid. So we went into accredited education, so government qualifications, government funding, all of that sort of stuff in 2015. In 2016, they made a whole bunch of changes to the space, which essentially meant we were 3 months away from a monthly loss of about $800,000 monthly. And so that was the biggest pinch for me ever financially and from a money perspective. It was the opposite of funny. It's quite a morbid story. Like, so began the hardest 18 months of my life. Yeah. But yeah, that hurt and that set me back. Yeah. 4 Ferraris would have been cheap.
Absolutely. God.
Like,
totally.
At least you would have been over in an instant, right? Yeah. It just happened like that and then it was over, right?
Absolutely.
Yours was like 18 months of feeling like you hit 4 Ferraris every day.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. But we came back and we're now stronger than we've ever been. So.
Well done.
Well, mine can be summed up very quickly. Was 19, bought a motorbike, got too scared, sold the motorbike at a massive loss. So, I mean, about as standard.
So you wrote it off or something?
No. I was just too scared. My parents got in my ear. It was the whole thing.
Well, you're here alive to tell the story today.
Jack, we've got entrepreneurs to look forward to tonight. Very quickly, what have we got to look forward to?
Tonight we're talking about how to scale. We've got some incredible guests. So once you've started your business, you've got a bit of a foundation. How do you grow it to 8 figures and beyond?
Great. That sounds like a must-watch right there for a lot of people. Okay. Thank you very much, Jack Delosa, John Rolfe. Much appreciated.
Thank you.